Kids, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to listen to the Far Out podcast right after you get done watching Mission Impossible, which is what I just did because I'm doing a rewatch of the series leading up to my screening of the latest installment in the franchise with The Final Reckoning. And of course, when you're talking about the Mission Impossible franchise, you can't not talk about its steward being Tom Cruise. And I mean, what can I say? He's Mr. Movies himself. He is known for putting everything he has into each production that he's involved in. Everything from something like a drama such as A Few Good Men to the sci-fi Minority Report to Oblivion to Jerry Maguire to the underappreciated American Made and of course to the Mission Impossible series. And I think that when people think of Tom Cruise, they're going to think of the Mission Impossible series. Of course, he's done other great films such as Top Gun, Top Gun Maverick, and he's worked with great filmmakers like Michael Mann on Collateral. But again, I think when you think of Tom Cruise, you're going to think of the Mission films because, like I said, he puts everything he has into each production, and he is so focused on bringing a level of authenticity that is frankly lost among a large section of filmmakers nowadays. I feel like he's known for doing his own stunts, for really being a hands-on producer of each film, and I think that that is very highly represented in the Mission series because everything he does, from driving cars at high speeds to racing motorcycles to jumping off of buildings, to hanging on the side of airplanes. That's all him. Tom Cruise actually does it. He commits to each bit, and it makes the film feel that more real, that more entertaining, so on and so forth. And so, yeah, the Mission Impossible series is really special to Tom Cruise for many reasons, and that makes it all the more special for us as the audience. And I actually have a pretty interesting relationship with the Mission Impossible series because my first entry to the series was with Ghost Protocol. I remember seeing that film in the theaters with my dad, and I wasn't aware at the time of what it really was. I didn't know who Tom Cruise was. I wasn't aware that this was kind of his return to the series, nor was I aware that potentially he might kind of gracefully exit the series because there were some things going on with the Mission franchise at that time. There was a large time gap in between parts 3 and 4. So, I didn't grasp the significance of it. I frankly just knew I was watching something really entertaining. And when I left the theater with my dad, I was like, I don't know what I just saw, but I know it was fantastic and I know I want to see it again. So, yeah, the Mission franchise really started on a high note for me. And because of that, I actually have not seen the original three Mission films, which I noticed some people, they're like, "Are you kidding me? How can you be a fan and not see, you know, the original three? How can you cherry pick, parts of the franchise?" And well, it's frankly because I've heard that when compared to the later entries, starting with Ghost Protocol, I've heard that 1, 2, and 3 frankly can't really carry water when compared to them, which again might anger some people, but that's just what I've heard. And from what I've seen of the original three, like I have an understanding of each of them. Like, I know that their plot progressions. I've watched clips on YouTube and I've watched the films in parts, but I've never actually sat down to do a proper watch from front to back of 1, 2, or 3. But what I know of the first three installments and what I've seen, I kind of tend to agree with the sentiment that I originally heard that the first three are good and they're unique in their own right, but the franchise really did hit its stride with Ghost Protocol with number 4, and then that has progressed into 5, 6, 7, and so on. And so for me, I started with Protocol, and I don't intend to go backwards with the franchise unless maybe someday I get into this kind of completionist mentality with the series, but who knows. But for the sake of this review of the franchise and this overview of the series, I am going to be covering just Protocol forward. That might that might make some people upset, but you know, whatever. But yeah, at the time of this recording, I intend to see the latest installment, The Final Reckoning, with my mom this weekend. Shout out my mom. And so I'm going to be watching a Mission film every day of the week and leading up to that screening. And so When I finish a mission film, then I'm going to, stop it, turn off my TV, then I'm going to hop on the mic, record my thoughts of that film, and then I'm going to do the same thing tomorrow. So this episode of the podcast is actually going to be recorded in chunks. Of course, you, the listener, will have it in its entirety when it comes out on YouTube. But like this first section here that you're listening to, this is being recorded on May 26th after I just got done watching Protocol, and then I will come back and I'll do the follow-up segments for Rogue Nation, Fallout, and so on and so forth. So yes, let's talk about Ghost Protocol, the film I just got done watching. Man, this thing is incredible. It really is. And as I said, I really do think that the franchise did hit its stride with this entry. I think that the stunt work has never been better. The comedy has never hit better. The action is incredible. The camera work, phenomenal. I mean, just the cinematography, the literal color palette. I just think Ghost Protocol represents a reinvention of the series that makes it fire on all cylinders from front to back. I just think it's really incredible. And, as I previously mentioned, Ghost Protocol follows up Mission Impossible 3, which, you go back and you look through history. It had a great critical reception. It was received well via critics, like a lot better than the first two Mission films, but it earned less money. It made less money than the first two. Box office does not necessarily equal quality. We can think of several examples of that in the film series, in the film business, pardon me. If you hear me burp, I apologize. I am drinking a cool, refreshing Dr. Pepper while I'm recording this, even though it's pretty late at night, but whatever. But yeah, it follows up Mission Impossible 3, which came out in 2006, and then Ghost Protocol comes out in 2011. And so there were 5 years in between mission films, and I think that that amount of time led the entire creative team, with Tom Cruise being involved in that as well, to really reshape what the next installment should be, and frankly, what the franchise as a whole should be. And I think that that extra time really did equal one of the greatest action films ever made. And I'm of course partially biased when I say this because, as I said, Ghost Protocol was my first mission film, but I truly do think that Ghost Protocol is the best of the series. People prefer many different entries in the franchise, and people think it's Fallout, it's Rogue Nation, or they might think, no, it's one, it's two, and like I totally respect that. I totally do, but like for me, Ghost Protocol is the best in the franchise. It's the most fun. It's the most memorable. And like I said, I think it does equal, or it can provide a pretty easy entry point to the franchise from how different it can feel from the previous three entries. And yeah, so I really enjoy this film, and it was such a joy to revisit it. And man, I mean, let's just talk about this. So this film is directed by Brad Bird, who, if you don't know who he is, you are probably familiar with his work, though it's kind of in a different wheelhouse because Brad Bird is really known for animation. He has directed The Iron Giant, The Incredibles, Ratatouille. He also did The Incredibles 2, and apparently he's doing The Incredibles 3, which, is crazy. But yeah, he's known for animation, and I think that Tom Cruise probably saw The Incredibles and saw his storytelling capabilities, saw the action in that, and said, despite it being animated, like this guy has an eye, he has a vision, he has the ability to really, you know, inject some creativity into each product that he makes. And so he comes from animation and does Ghost Protocol, which is his first live action film. And like I can't believe, the amount of work and upheaval that was required by him to do this. But I mean, for being, for entering that medium of filmmaking for the first time, even though it's not his first film overall, but again, his first live action film, he really hit a grand slam, in my opinion. Because as I said, I think that everything about this film works just excellently. And of course, you've got incredible action with the Dubai sequence, Tom Cruise scaling and then, going down the Burj Khalifa. You've got, all the stuff in India. You've got the incredible finale in that vertical car park, or like the garage. I mean, this film I think is really just tremendous, and part of that I think is also due to its cast because this thing really does have a great cast. It's of course led by Tom Cruise. Then you got Jeremy Renner coming off of well, he's about to be known as one of the Avengers, but he is known as Hawkeye because he got introduced in that first Thor film. But right after this, the next year after, he becomes one of the Avengers, and he's really great in this. Then you got Simon Pegg, and then you got Paula Patton as well, which, in my opinion, it's a bummer that she did not come back for subsequent installments. But we'll talk about the lack of her when I cover those films. But yeah, I think Ghost Protocol has a great cast, a real great direction, a real good sense of action, scale, humor as well, and of course, I'm kind of jumping around here, but what's also interesting about the film too is actually how it opens because you got uh, Josh Holloway, I believe is his name, and he plays this agent known as Hanaway, and the literal opening of this film really does set the tone for it because you have him. Spoilers for the whole thing, by the way, but you have him dying, but prior to his death, he jumps off that skyscraper and he throws down what looks like a beanbag, and then it expands into this giant inflatable cushion that breaks his fall. And right from there, you're already getting a sense that, like, okay, this is an action film, it's a spy film, we're taking it seriously, but we're not taking it too seriously. And so it kind of sets the table for this not fantasy action, but this like exaggerated action that's going to come with the rest of the film and with the rest of the series overall. And so I think that's pretty great. And what's really nice and something that I noticed about this is that the whole team, the IMF, the team that Tom Cruise is with, they're really on the back foot the whole film because in the movie Ghost Protocol is enacted, which means that you know everything is shut down. Everything has been released. The team has been disavowed, so on and so forth. And so Tom Cruise and his teammates, they just are kind of scavenging for gear, and because of that, everything is breaking. The equipment that Tom Cruise uses to climb the Burj Khalifa, it breaks. The masks that they would use to disguise themselves, it breaks. So on and so forth. And it's really nice just seeing them overcome obstacle after obstacle in really entertaining ways. And yeah, so Ghost Protocol, I think, has a great sense of pace, a great sense of thrill. I think it has an incredible plot, and it's written by Josh Applebaum and Andre Nemec, and I think that they really did an incredible job. And yeah, look, this film is amazing. I think it is, like I said, the best in the franchise, and I think that if you are looking to get into the Mission series, of course you could start properly with one and go chronologically, but I really do think that Ghost Protocol is frankly where it's at. It to me is just the best, and this globe-trotting adventure is just so much fun. And in a world where we have plenty of spy thrillers such as the Jack Ryan series, James Bond, of course, the way how the Mission Impossible series is able to differentiate itself from other spy movie series are really it's really really great, and again a really good testament to the overall product of the film. But yeah, I had a blast watching it. Again, that Burj Khalifa sequence is probably one of the greatest things I've ever seen. It might even be, the best stunt in the series, which, people are like, what about this? What about that? But like again, just from a production value level, like, and just the way it's all captured in camera, like it really is just tremendous. I'm just gonna say it, and like I said, I'm biased because this was my first mission film, but yeah, Ghost Protocol. What a great film! Just what a great way to start off the second phase of your franchise. And at one point there were rumors that Tom Cruise was gonna kind of exit the series, that he was gonna pass the baton to what would be Jeremy Renner. which I think there's some credence to that because he was going to do that with the Jason Bourne franchise. That did not pan out, and like I said, he was on the heels of becoming an Avenger. But I think that Tom Cruise recognized how good of a film this was with him in it, and I think everyone else recognized that a large part of this film working is just Tom Cruise's steady hand with this production, and so he kept with the franchise, in the driver's seat that he is. So yeah, I'm really thankful for this film in a lot of different ways because again, it gave me great memories with my dad and introduced me to the series, and yeah, I think it was the first. I think Ghost Protocol walked so the rest of the series could run. And yeah, so I'm just really appreciative of this film. I think it's great, and it frankly was better than I remembered. And it's not like it's a film that I watch, once a year. Maybe I watch it once every 2 to 3 years. But yeah, just doing this rewatch for the lead up to my screening of The Final Reckoning. I was just reminded how great this film is. So yeah, if you have not seen Ghost Protocol for a bit, or if you haven't seen it ever, I highly recommend that you do. And yeah, Tom Cruise, he sure does know how to entertain. And so, yeah, this will be the end of the first portion of the episode. Again, this first part is being recorded on the 26th, and then every day I'll hop back on the mic and I'll do a bit on each film, and then you'll see it or you'll hear this episode after I record the last segment, which will be about the final reckoning, and then we'll go from there. So, yeah, have a good night, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode. Welcome back, kids. Your next mission, should you choose to accept it, has to do with a rogue nation. And I'm, of course, talking about Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, which is the mission film I just got done watching at the time of this recording. It is now May 27th, 2025. And this actually is an important date because I had not realized that on this day, 3 years ago, Top Gun Maverick released, which is another Tom Cruise movie. And yeah, I just want to shout out that film for a minute or two. Top Gun Maverick is incredible. It's a movie that I saw 5 times in theaters. I own it on DVD. It made me laugh. It made me shed a tear. Uh, it's just a tremendous film. And like I said previously, Tom Cruise uh, is really known for his authenticity when it comes to his filmmaking sensibilities, and Top Gun Maverick really I think lives or dies by Cruise's handle on that film, and it's incredibly entertaining. It's patriotic. It has a sense of energy that really did impact the audience beyond just the entertainment level because of course this came out at the time of the pandemic, of the COVID-19 pandemic, and it really did revitalize movie theaters, and I think it revitalized people's interest in going to the movies. And so this film is great for several reasons, but just on a filmmaking level itself, it really is tremendous. And I was not aware that it came out 3 years ago to this day, but I'm so happy that it happens to overlap when I'm doing a rewatch of the Mission series as well as when I'm recording, um, you know, these bits for the podcast episode. But yeah, when you're not watching Mission Impossible, go rewatch Top Gun Maverick because Tom Cruise, when he's not entertaining us by being a super spy, he's entertaining us by being a fighter pilot. And yeah, Top Gun Maverick, just crazy. Can't believe it's already been 3 years, but definitely worth a rewatch on that one too. So yeah, happy birthday, Top Gun Maverick, and do you feel the need for speed? Because I sure do. But yeah, getting back to the Mission Impossible of it all, I got done watching Rogue Nation, and it's great. Like I said previously, with Ghost Protocol. I think that that film really ushered in a new era for the franchise, and Rogue Nation kind of follows suit with that mentality because this is the series. This is the entry in the series that introduces Christopher McQuarrie to to the films, and he is a writer, director, producer extraordinaire, and he and Tom Cruise work really well together. And I believe that they first got connected on a World War II film called Valkyrie, and they just kind of have had this working relationship and friendship ever since. But yeah, Christopher McQuarrie is a great filmmaker. He really knows what he's doing, and he had some work to do on Ghost Protocol. I think that he did some passes on the script from a writing standpoint, but now here with Rogue Nation, he gets into the director chair as well as the writing chair, and yeah, he's working alongside Tom Cruise much more directly. And I think the film really succeeds because of his involvement, and hence why he has stayed on with the franchise. He, of course, did Rogue Nation, Fallout, Dead Reckoning, and now Final Reckoning. So clearly, there's kind of a perfect formula with him at the helm, and Cruise, helping him along the way. Despite me saying all that great praise for the film and its filmmaking abilities, uh, this film is good. I really enjoyed it, but I actually I think I liked it less this time around because again, I think just when comparing it to other entries in the series, there were some things that stood out to me that like I had not realized. Like, I still prefer Ghost Protocol, for example. And like one thing about Ghost Protocol is that the story itself is pretty straightforward. It's pretty easy to follow. And Mission Impossible does a great job of kind of politely guiding and hand holding the audience because these are complex stories. But I think that Rogue Nation does kind of suffer under its own weight. I think it's a tad too complex because it has to do with numerous misdirects and double crossing to the point to where it's like, well, you know, it's like if the villains are going to be competent, shouldn't they see this coming? Shouldn't they anticipate this? And shouldn't they respond to certain things differently? And so on and so forth. But, I digress. If Ghost Protocol is a 9, Rogue Nation is like an 8 or an 8.5. And this film really is great. It's got an incredible cast that, of course, includes Tom Cruise, returning people such as Jeremy Renner, Simon Pegg, Ving Rhames, but it's lacking uh, Paula Patton from Ghost Protocol, which I think is a big bummer. I really enjoyed her in the previous film, and I think that she is missed in this installment. I think that she would have been a great asset to have on this film. Of course, we get introduced to Rebecca Ferguson, Lady Jessica herself. Shout out my Dune fans, and she's great. She's great, but I wish that Paula Patton and Ferguson could have both been in this movie together. I think that they would have played off each other really well, and I think that the dynamic that Paula Patton had with Tom Cruise was really strong as well. And so, yeah, just a bummer as to why she did not return. I don't know why. I don't know if it was scheduling or if there was just no more use for her character. But I kind of find that hard to believe because I think that she was a really strong part of Ghost Protocol, and yeah, I don't know why she wasn't included in Rogue Nation. Another thing though, that's kind of a bummer is that you know uh, Jeremy Renner returns. He's now cemented as Hawkeye from the Avengers films, and the same year that Rogue Nation comes out, 2015, we get Avengers: Age of Ultron, where Jeremy Renner takes a much more leading man role in that. But despite his inclusion in the Avengers films and despite him having a great character and a lot to do in Ghost Protocol, he really doesn't have a lot to do in Rogue Nation. He's kind of just a professional talker, whereas in Ghost Protocol, Jeremy Renner was kicking major butt. Like he was standing alongside Tom Cruise, just kicking butt and taking names. I mean, he was a spy saving the world, and now in here, he's kind of the ambassador for the IMF, and it's like anyone could have been in that position. I think it was honestly kind of a waste of Jeremy Renner, and like I said, his stardom had only grown since Ghost Protocol, and his character was so cool, and so I just wish that he did not get regulated to the background. I wish he had more to do. So those are my really only couple of knocks on the film. Just I wish Renner had more to do. I wish Patton was still here, and I wish that the story, was a little more streamlined when it comes to that. However, I mean this film is still phenomenal. Like I said, if Ghost Protocol is a 9, Rogue Nation's like an 8 or an 8.5 because you have the incredible opening sequence of Tom Cruise literally hanging off the side of a plane. And like That's actually him. Like, and that he's actually strapped into like he's locked into like the side panel of like an actual plane taking off. Like, and there's behind the scenes footage of him needing to wear special contacts to keep dust and rocks out of his eyes, and like, it's actually him. And this is how the film opens. Like, one of the biggest, coolest stunts imaginable is inside of the first 5 minutes of the film. Like, it just sets the table for an absolute feast, and we are ready to eat as an audience. And then, of course, you get into the opera sequence, which is just phenomenal, and that's where you get properly introduced to Rebecca Ferguson, and I mean, she's amazing in this film, and she's of course a gorgeous woman in her own right too. So like, I mean, she just brings so much to the table. She really has this kind of Bond girl vibe to her, which is great. Giving a shout out to another spy franchise, but like, she builds a rifle out of a flute. I mean, like, it's so crazy and creative and unique. Like, it's so entertaining to watch. And then you have Tom Cruise fighting to opera music. I mean, like, come on, like, it doesn't get any better than this. And yeah, Rebecca Ferguson brings a lot to the table, and then you have the great motorcycle chase, and Tom Cruise is taking out dudes on, inside of a car, and he's spinning and doing all these cool tricks and whatever. And then, of course, he's pursuing Rebecca Ferguson, and so, like, they're racing at these incredibly fast speeds, and it's crazy. Then you have the underwater sequence, which is a lot of fun in its own right, and that's a really cool sequence as well. And of course, Tom Cruise, because he's this creative animal. He learned how to hold his breath for like several minutes. Like, I think it was like 4 or 5 minutes, which is just crazy. Like, he actually learned how to do that. So yeah, Rogue Nation, just a really, really good film. I really, really enjoyed it, and I think that the inclusion of Christopher McQuarrie to the franchise was great. I think that he really kind of cultivated this way forward for continued success. Um, and the villain in this is really great too. You have a villain that spans numerous films now, because the last villain was killed off in Ghost Protocol. Spoiler, and spoiler for Rogue Nation as well. Just spoilers in general for the rest of the films as well. But yeah, Rogue Nation, really a lot of fun, a really good follow-up to Ghost Protocol. I just think it lacks in a few departments that kind of just take it just a slight step down from its predecessor. But it's still an awful lot of fun. It's shot great, it looks great, it's globe-trotting and has great music, great action. And yeah, so I mean, this film is incredible. And upon a rewatch, I fell back in love with it, and it's such a blast. And yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this portion of the podcast. And the next time I see you will be the following day. Will be May 28th, and I'll have the next film to talk about, which will be Mission Impossible Fallout. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Kids, your next mission will present you with the fallout of all your good intentions. And I am, of course, talking about Mission Impossible Fallout. It is now May 28th, and it is pretty late in the evening at the time of this recording. However, that's okay, as I cannot wait to talk about this film. And yeah, upon rewatching this one, boy, this thing is great. I actually forgot how great this movie is. As I said, Ghost Protocol is my personal favorite of the franchise that holds a special place in my heart, and I really enjoyed Rogue Nation. However, I thought it was just a slight step down from Protocol, but after rewatching Fallout, I can confidently say that this one holds the number two spot for me in the franchise. It is just slightly above Rogue Nation and just slightly below Ghost Protocol. And I don't know how they keep doing it over there. For this rewatch right now, they're three for three with these incredible films that just continue to entertain just from top to bottom. And this is yet another great installment in the Mission franchise, helmed by Christopher McQuarrie. And Tom Cruise, of course, leads the cast. And you have great returning cast members such as Simon Pegg, Rebecca Ferguson, Ving Rhames. But then you have these newcomers such as Henry Cavill, who plays a great villain. You have Vanessa Kirby. You have Angela Bassett. I mean, this is a real who's who of talent. You also have Alec Baldwin backing everybody up. He's really great in this movie too. And yeah, this thing is incredible. the action is some of the best in the entire franchise. Of course, you have the that opening sequence where Tom Cruise performs that halo jump, which is really thrilling as well. But just in terms of the literal choreography, I mean, I think perhaps Fallout maybe has the best hand-to-hand combat in the franchise. I mean, that bathroom fight scene alone is just that's the frosting on top of this delicious cake, and that of course gives us Henry Cavill reloading his arms, the iconic image or GIF that we've seen over the years. GIF, I don't know, either or. But yeah, that one's for the history books, absolutely. It's funny. He plays a villain, and again, spoilers for the film, but near the end of the film, he gets his face burned. He gets sprayed on with some kind of chemical. And look, Cavill is a really handsome fella, and I thought that when they kind of scarred him. I thought that was a really intentional decision, and so I thought that, oh, Henry Cavill's going to live and he's going to become this deformed villain. They're going for kind of something really Bond-esque, that Cavill can be this continuing thorn in Tom Cruise's side, and you can play on him not only wanting to destroy the world, and just be the typical villain, but then you can also have Cavill saying like, the last time we met, you ruined me, you destroyed me. But they didn't do that because, again, spoiler, Henry Cavill dies at the end. So I was just like, like I feel like he left some food on the table there. I wish that he would have lived and that he could have been this scarred villain. But whatever. But yeah, I'm kind of jumping around here because again, it's pretty late at night as I record this. So sorry if I'm rambling, more than I usually do on the Far Out podcast. But yeah, this film really is tremendous. You got the halo jump in the beginning, though the actual literal beginning of the film, like the first like 10 to 12 minutes, is actually a little slow in my opinion. Like Rogue Nation starts on such a bang with that airplane scene, and Fallout starts kind of slow in a lower gear, and then of course it ramps up with that halo jump, and it goes on from there because that then leads into the bathroom fight, then that leads into Paris, and I mean this thing moves like a rocket after that. It just takes a little bit, but yeah, everything in Paris is incredible. Great choreography with everyone, including Vanessa Kirby, who she's really great. She plays a great um, kind of villain, kind of a kind of like a mischievous character, this foil to really everyone. So she was really great, getting to see her kind of let loose a little bit against Tom Cruise. You have great automobile action, motorcycles, cars. You got great chases, you got great foot chases as well. You got really good gunplay in this one as well too. And then yeah, leading up into that final battle with Tom Cruise versus Henry Cavill, you got everything with the helicopters. You've got these two helicopters duking it out over these snow-capped mountains, and I had forgotten how intricate that ending sequence was because I remember it them just flying the two helicopters and Tom Cruise is trying to crash into him because he doesn't have any weapons on his helicopter, so he's just trying to force Henry Cavill down. So I had thought that it was kind of just this this collection of near misses in the air. Then you have the crash, and then that leads into them going into their hand-to-hand combat. But it's actually a little more in depth because you have the crash, but then you have that the debris from the helicopters are constantly moving down the mountain, and so both our hero and our villain are constantly getting moved around and getting injured, and so that was really good as well. And um, what's interesting is that when I rewatched Ghost Protocol, I watched all the movies on Paramount Plus. When I watched Ghost Protocol, I don't think the aspect ratio changed for the Burj Khalifa scene because that sequence was filmed in IMAX. It was shot on IMAX cameras. I don't think the aspect ratio changed via Paramount Plus. However, as I rewatched Fallout, it did. That entire aerial sequence in the helicopters that I previously mentioned, that was all shot with IMAX cameras, and so the aspect ratio would change. You'd get a literally wider image than than everything else. And I really appreciated that because that thing does look just phenomenal. Getting everything in that full image, the colors and the light really stand out. And again, Tom Cruise is Mr. Movies. He's doing it all for real. He really learned how to fly. So it looks great. I don't think the aspect ratio changed for Protocol, and I don't remember if there were any pieces to Rogue Nation that were shot in IMAX. I think maybe the motorcycle chase was, but again, I don't think that was presented in the IMAX format on Paramount Plus. But Fallout has the aspect ratio changes. I noticed it. It just did that naturally. So that was pretty great to see that sequence in its full glory without any compromising there. But yeah, wow, Mission Impossible Fallout. Um, for a lot of people, this is their favorite one of the franchise, and I get it. It's a very, very strong entry, front to back. Everything about it fires on all cylinders. But just like I said, I'm biased to Ghost Protocol. That was my first one, and I think that film was really special in a lot of ways. But yeah, this film really is great. Just a few detractors, though. Again, like I said, I think that the first couple of minutes are a little slow, and then you have a great cast, like I mentioned. You got returning favorites, and you have great new additions. But there's no Jeremy Renner, which is a bummer because, like I said previously, he was great in Ghost Protocol. Then he gets kind of sidelined. He gets pushed around a bit in Rogue Nation, and now he's nowhere to be found in Fallout. He keeps getting reduced, and so I wish he could have been there. And same with Paula Patton. I wish that she could have stuck around too. And yeah, um, we got Vanessa Kirby in there. We got Rebecca Ferguson as well as these new players and newcomers and whatnot. We got Henry Cavill, but I think that their cast was already stellar. And you could have just added more to it. But you know what? Hope springs eternal that they return somehow, some way to the Mission franchise. But yeah, those things aside, those little quibbles aside, Fallout is incredible. If you have not seen the film, please watch it, and if you have not rewatched it recently, please rewatch it because yeah, it's incredible. But yeah, the next portion of this podcast will be recorded the following day as I cover Dead Reckoning, formerly Dead Reckoning Part One, and then there was going to be Dead Reckoning Part Two. However, they were renamed to Dead Reckoning and then the Final Reckoning. But yeah, we're almost done with my recap of most of the Mission franchise, and I look forward to rewatching Dead Reckoning, sharing my thoughts on that one, and then getting into the Final Reckoning and getting to see that in the theater. So, you know, uh, thank you for choosing to accept this mission, and I will see you guys in the next one. Kids, AI is coming, and it could bring a reckoning, but not if Tom Cruise has anything to say about it. And I'm, of course, talking about Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, formerly Part 1, however, it's just now known as Dead Reckoning. And yes, this is the latest mission film I have seen for this podcast recording. It is now the 29th of May, and I just finished rewatching the film. And what can I say? These Mission Impossible films, they keep hitting banger after banger. I mean, these things are incredible. And yeah, Dead Reckoning is no exception. I really enjoyed rewatching this film. I'll say this though, it by no means is my favorite of the Mission series. But again, with how good the series is overall, even a not subpar but kind of a lesser entry is still great. Like if everything prior to it is like an A plus, this is an A minus. It at the very least it's like a B plus. I mean, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning is still an incredible film, but upon a rewatch, I do see that there are some lapses in it. Look, as I said off the dome here, this movie has to do with AI, which on paper does not equal to be a great villain because you like when your hero has a bad guy that he can take down, usually by the form of a chase or punching, kicking, shooting, capturing, what have you. And an AI is a thing. How do you fight an AI? You can't punch it, unless you're doing like a Terminator robot type thing. So really, you can only evade it and try to outsmart it. Well, how does that equate to a good action film? And look, despite all those hurdles, uh, Tom Cruise and Christopher McQuarrie at the helm here, they managed to find a way how to do that. And yeah, this film is really great. It, of course, builds on its incredible cast. You have Pom Klementif, who is this great, almost silent like assassin. She was formerly Mantis in the Marvel movies. She got introduced in Guardians of the Galaxy. She's fantastic. She's a real force in nature. She might have like the best action sequence in like the whole film. You have Haley Atwell, also coming from the Marvel Universe. She was Captain Carter, Agent Carter, then Captain Carter. Not to be confused with Agent Carter from Ghost Protocol. It's a kind of a funny piece of symmetry there. Then you have the new villain coming in, known as Henry. I think you pronounce his last name as Chesry. My apologies if I mispronounce his last name. You have him coming in, which here's another problem though, is that like again with this actually segues pretty good into what I was previously talking about. You have the AI, the entity as it's known, be the villain in the film. Well, they have to give this AI some form of a human body per se for Ethan Hunt, for Tom Cruise to chase after. Not saying that the AI goes into the human body. He doesn't go into the villain known as Gabriel, played by Mr. Henry Chesney. But that's the villain's name is Gabriel. Gabriel really more or less assumes the role of the courier, of the transporter for the entity, and he's kind of someone that does the entity's bidding. And so the AI, the entity, when it tells the bad guys that you need to go blow up this thing, you need to go capture this thing, you need to go disrupt this thing, Gabriel's going to go out and enact that. He's going to, get the militia together. And so Gabriel more or less just serves as the physical foil to Tom Cruise's Ethan Hunt. And in the film, Gabriel is said to have a backstory with Ethan Hunt that goes back to the entirety of Mission Impossible. It's supposed to go back to into the films that I haven't seen yet. I think it's supposed to connect to Mission Impossibles 1, 2, and 3. Even if that's the case, and I frankly don't know that because it's never explained, it's only alluded to in the film, they don't leave a lot of breadcrumbs for you to follow. Which for me, coming into the series on Ghost Protocol in the fourth chapter, I was fine with that. I enjoyed the mystery of it. However, if you're someone watching this film and you've seen every mission film, and you can clearly tell that, oh, this is connecting to something way deep into the past, there's no explanation. It's just this really thin string that they never really pull on again. For me, it's fine, but I feel it's kind of a wasted opportunity, and I hope that there is some follow up, hopefully, especially in the next film, Final Reckoning. But as for Dead Reckoning, it's never really explained. It's only meant to add this layer of mystery that I frankly just don't think lands properly. But that being said, Gabriel, as he amasses troops to take on Ethan Hunt and to do the bidding of the AI of the entity, one of his right hand man, in fact, the right hand man, his Chewbacca to his Han Solo, is Pom Klementif, who plays this silent assassin known as Paris. And she's incredible. She's phenomenal. And there's this incredible chase sequence in Rome, which has Tom Cruise and Haley Atwell get into this tricked out Fiat. This thing is yellow and it's the size of like like a really small golf cart. Like it's like a knee high car, and it's like got like just this little itty bitty engine and whatnot. But of course, it's a spy, christened vehicle, so it's got all these gadgets on it and whatnot. And this thing can cruise like no other. But it looks like a toy car. Those Fisher Price vehicles that like the kids would ride in, the ones that are red with the yellow roof. It's essentially the size of that. And Tom Cruise and Haley Atwell use that as their getaway, and they have to constantly switch drivers because they're handcuffed together, so they're physically locked together. Well, like if Tom Cruise is right-handed and he's sitting in the seat of the car that only allows him to be pulling at the wheel with his left, well, then he says, okay, Haley, well, you have to take control of the car. Well, I can't drive. Well, you're going to drive. You're just going to listen to my directions. I'll control the pedals. I mean, it's freaking crazy. And then you have Pom Klementif, Paris. You have her chasing after them in this super duty Hummer that she gets from the police in Rome. And this thing must get like 3 miles to the gallon because it's effectively a monster truck. It's just made for the street. rolling over cars, going down literal pieces of stairs. It's smashing over motorcycles. So you have the biggest vehicle with the biggest engine going after this tiny vehicle with the smallest engine. You got this ultra duty heavy souped up diesel thing versus this Fiat. So it's pretty crazy, but it's a lot of fun. It's very colorful. It's really well lit. It looks great. Looks like $1 million, and it really is remarkable. There's also great hand-to-hand combat as well, and you get to see that from everyone, including Tom Cruise, Haley Atwell, Rebecca Ferguson. Pour one out for her. Spoilers for the film, of course, but she does die, but she goes out on a high note. And yeah, sad to see her go, but good that we got to have her for what we did. She gets a great introduction where she's sniping at bad guys in the desert, and Tom Cruise has to go and find her. And so they're fighting. They're having this gun battle in this sandstorm. It looks incredible. Like the sand has literally flowed into the buildings that they're in, and so like the sand is piling up, and so they can climb this mound of sand inside a building that now takes them up to like the roof, and they're having to like shoot at the enemies. It's freaking fantastic. And then you go further into the film, and you have what was marketed as the big stunt of the film, where Tom Cruise has to get aboard a train, a moving train, and what he does is he launches this dirt bike off of a cliff's face, and then he skydives and parachutes down onto the train, which of course he did for real. I don't know if he actually landed on a literal train. He probably did, but the stunt itself, the launch, is real. He actually drove a motorcycle off a cliff and actually did parachute down to the ground. So that is all real. That's all practical, and it looks great. But in execution, it lacks in what the other stunts from the previous films have done. Again, like in Mission Impossible Fallout, you have the helicopter sequence. In Rogue Nation, you have the underwater stuff and you have the motorcycle chase. And then in Ghost Protocol, you have the Burj Khalifa. And while this stunt in Dead Reckoning with the motorcycle and the cliff is incredible, just compared to the rest, it's not as strong. Hence why I think that that's a great microcosm for the film itself, because Dead Reckoning is a great film, but compared to the other Mission films, it's not top shelf. It's still very strong though. What is really strong and what I think steals the movie for me is actually the sequence that follows after this, is where the train derails, because of course it does, and the bridge is blown and it's falling off the bridge, and it's literally falling off the bridge into a chasm, train car by train car. And Tom Cruise and Haley Atwell have to climb the train both on the outside and on the inside, one car at a time. And so they're constantly jumping up onto a different portion of the train, and they're dodging falling debris such as like a piano, but then they go through the kitchen car, of the train, and that has knives and hot oil and food, and they're slipping. They have to do that. All of this actually has no music set to it, so you're just hearing the metal on metal, the clanging, the breaking. Everything is falling and shattering, and you're getting these really cool semi-natural sounds that's not overlaid with all this extra music. In my opinion, despite the scene being bombastic and crazy, when it comes to the sound design, less is more, and I think that really excels for that. And so while the the cliff scene with the motorcycle, like I said, was really marketed as the big stunt of the film. In fact, it's on most of the posters. The train sequence, I think, is even more thrilling. I mean, I think that should have been the whole sequence. And I know that for that sequence as well, I think they did actually destroy part of a real train, or they had makeshift cars suspended actually like in the air. So for me, that absolutely takes the cake over anything. But yeah, Dead Reckoning is a really great film. It's kind of eerie how relatable it is to today's world, because in 2025, AI is only on the rise, and of course, everyone loves to go to the cliches of, well, has no one watched Terminator? What about all the movies? And it's we should take that seriously. Like everyone's joking, like, oh no, don't let it get out of hand, hoo hoo hoo. But it's like it's true. Don't let it get out of hand. And and even just on a social level, there's this idea now that AI is gonna take over the film industry, and it's gonna ruin art. And I think that Tom Cruise and Christopher McQuarrie, being the geniuses that they are, I think that they kind of saw the writing on the wall, and they said we got to make a statement about how AI is potentially a threat to, us as people. It could become the new Skynet. But I think on just a filmmaking level, this is a movie that says, look, AI's coming, but we're not done yet. We as humans still make the best thing. We probably always will. And here's a movie that demonstrates how humanity should push back against AI, and it's done through the medium of film, which is a medium of art. And Christopher McQuarrie and Tom Cruise made a really great action film, which in itself is a piece of art. And so I think it's very, very timely. And yeah, if you can push past the kind of real world shadow that falls over this from this film, then I think you'll enjoy it. But yeah, Dead Reckoning is yet another great installment in the Mission series. But and by no means is it my favorite. I'll give a final ranking at the end after I see the final Reckoning. But I think if I had to find a home for it right now, it'd be at the bottom of the ones that I've seen recently. And so I'll go Ghost Protocol, Fallout, Rogue Nation, and then Dead Reckoning. But we'll see what happens after the final Reckoning comes out and after I get to see that film. And yeah, I'll be recording the last segment of this podcast after I see that film, and then I will put it up onto the Far Out podcast feed sometime soon in the following days. And so yeah, just be on the lookout. But thank you for continuing to check out this episode, and hope you enjoy checking out the Mission Impossible films. And maybe I'll see you at the movies when Dead Reckoning, when the final Reckoning comes out. I guess it's already came out technically. I'm just seeing it later than most. But yeah, if you're in my theater watching the final Reckoning alongside me, well then hope you enjoy the film. All right, I'll see you later. Kids, the AI is back, and it brings with it a reckoning, perhaps the final reckoning. And yes, kids, it has happened. I have now seen the latest Mission Impossible film, perhaps the last one, but we shall see. But yes, it is now May 30th. It is Friday, and I saw the film with my mom. Shout out my mom. And wow, Tom Cruise is Mr. Movies. I mean, what can I say that I haven't already said about the Mission film series? This series is incredible. In my opinion, of the ones that I've seen, there have not been a bad one. There really hasn't been. And I'm very happy to say that the final Reckoning does not break that streak. This is a good film. It's a very good film. It by no means is my favorite of the series, but I can get into that a little later. But I'm very thankful to have seen and to have done my rewatch of the series, especially Dead Reckoning, because as I said in the last segment, and you can just look this up for yourself if you ever have, an inclining. But the last two Mission films were made back to back. They were dubbed as Part One and Part Two, and then their titles changed from Dead Reckoning Part One and Part Two to just Dead Reckoning, then the Final Reckoning. But that initial blueprint of that project still exists because this film very much does feel like a part two to its previous entry in the series. And so you could very much say, oh, this is just Dead Reckoning Part 2, because it effectively is, just the title's a little different. But also, upon rewatching the series, I really got familiar with a lot of the plot points and a lot of the set pieces. And that really did serve me greatly while I was watching this film, because this one is a celebration of the series. It includes many callbacks, literal flashbacks to previous entries, like they literally cut in parts of older movies into this film. And so this one does feel like a kind of send off or a kind of wrap up for the series. We will see. But look, I'm going to talk about this in the context of spoilers. This is going to be a spoiler discussion of the final Reckoning. Because again, it has been out for a couple of weeks at the time of this recording. And so, again, I'm going to talk about the film in full context. I should have said that a little earlier. My apologies. But yes, now here's the warning properly. This is a spoiler discussion for Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Okay, you have been warned. So, again, as I just mentioned, this film does feel like a wrap up to the series because they really go through the entirety of the franchise with many characters talking about previous, not installments of the films, but previous, plot points from the previous films, with the bombing of the Kremlin, with the stuff that went down in Mission Impossible 3, with the stuff about Tom Cruise bombing a briefing among security personnel from Dead Reckoning. There's a lot of callbacks both in word and in visual representation that when that was happening, I was like, okay, yeah, we're kind of running the greatest hits here. This does feel like a send off, and also not for nothing because other films have done this too, but Tom, since the pandemic, since COVID-19, there have been some movies will include like a message at the front of the film that shows off the principal cast or the director saying, "Thank you for coming to the movie theater to watch this. This is made for the big screen. We appreciate you attending. Please enjoy our film." Uh, Now the pandemic is in the rear view, with it being the year 2025. Yet this film was introduced by a message from Tom Cruise saying, "Thank you for coming to the theater. We made this for you. Please enjoy. Love the cast and the crew." And so even that, even before the film technically started properly, I turned to my mom and I was like, "This is it." I was like, I don't know if he's dying. I don't know if they're doing a send off. If this is the end." But I was like, "This." It really did feel final, and then it goes into, like I said, the flashbacks throughout the film. And the ending in particular left me a little puzzled because, again, spoilers, but Tom Cruise did not die, and I really thought he would because this was kind of dubbed as perhaps the last one. I thought they'd give him a big glorious send off. I thought Tom Cruise would literally die in the film, saying mission accomplished, and that's that. He does not, and he kind of walks off with Haley Atwell's character having captured the entity, having captured the rogue AI, which I did not expect because all throughout the first film, or the previous one, Dead Reckoning, and now this one, Tom Cruise is talking about how the AI should not be captured, it should not be weaponized even by or controlled even by someone like the U.S. It should just be flat out destroyed, and then he has opportunities to destroy it, in a manner of speaking. Yet he himself is seen carrying it at the end of the film after it's captured. So that one was a little interesting to me because again, that kind of went against what he was saying, but I could see it now to where that is leaving the door open just slightly to where what if now for the next mission film, if there is one, someone attacks Tom Cruise and tries to steal it. So now it goes from instead of Tom Cruise trying to steal something himself or trying to shut something down, he's now having to protect the entity from falling into the wrong hands. But again, he kind of viewed all sets of hands as being the wrong hands. So what are you gonna do? But yeah, this film is really, really good. What's interesting about this entry, though, in the Mission series is that there's not a lot of action there, which is kind of crazy because this series is known for its heavy action and incredible stunt work, and there is incredible stunt work, but it's very sparse on action. It's much more tone focused, and it's really dramatic. And don't get me wrong, it is entertaining. There are still set pieces galore, and there's great dialogue, and you love watching these actors play these characters. But there's a lot less bang bang pew pew hand to hand combat. There's even a scene at the beginning of the film where Tom Cruise is fighting bad guys, but they don't show you the action. They focus the camera on Haley Atwell's character, and you just hear the punching and the thwacking and the grunting and the breaking of glass. And it's sold as a comedic bit because you're watching her just react and kind of scrunch her face and hide her eyes and type stuff. And it's funny. I laughed. But again, we're used to seeing action play out. We're not used to just leaving it up to the imagination. It almost felt kind of like a Looney Tunes episode where it's like again, you don't see it, but you just hear everything. And it's a good enough scene, but I found that kind of odd that they don't show you the action. They just want you to hear and react to it in your mind. An interesting decision, but still good. I still enjoyed the sequence. I just again we're used to seeing it actually play out. But of course, then you go forward ahead, and much like how in Dead Reckoning they had their giant stunt as the motorcycle jump off the cliff onto the train with the parachute. In this, they have a plane sequence, a sequence set on two biplanes that are really brightly colored. One is red and one is yellow. And if you look at any posters for the film, you'll surely see that portrayed as well. But in the scene, in the sequence, Tom Cruise is hanging off the side of one of the planes, and he has to get from one plane to the other. And so he's literally transferring his body. He's climbing off of one plane in midair and getting onto the other. And so he at one point leaves the cockpit of one plane and gets onto the other plane, being Gabriel's plane. And that in and of itself was a thrilling sequence. We'll never see anyone do anything like that ever again. However, I do wish it could have been a little better. I don't mean to sound like such a snob, but again, very similar to Dead Reckoning, the motorcycle cliff sequence is amazing, but we've seen stuff that I think is frankly better. The airplane sequence in this is amazing. I just frankly think we've seen stuff that's better. And I think what could have made the scene better, and again, I don't mean to armchair quarterback this, but what I think could have made the scene better is that in the actual film itself, in the Final Reckoning, you have Tom Cruise flying underneath Gabriel's plane. He climbs out of his plane, grabs onto the landing gear, then he climbs up the landing gear, and that's that. What I wish would have happened is that I wish Tom Cruise would have done a barrel roll over the top of Gabriel's plane, and then he jumps out downward. And so he's going from cockpit to cockpit like a missile, like he's diving forward, or diving down onto Gabriel's plane, and he gets right into his cockpit that way. I don't know if that's physically possible, but again, with Tom Cruise doing these incredible sequences, um, you know, I don't think anything is impossible to him. Hence why it's Mission Impossible. But yeah, so again, if they called me and said, "How can we make this better?" I would have had him get onto the actual plane differently, as opposed to just getting on via the landing gear. But again, I'm armchair quarterbacking this. We still watched a human being go from one plane to another in midair. So I'll take what I can get. But also, much like Dead Reckoning, how I thought that the train sequence was better than the motorcycle sequence, there is another sequence in the Final Reckoning that I think is better than the plane sequence. And prior to the plane sequence, there's a sequence that happens on a submarine, on a downed submarine. So it's sitting at the bottom of the ocean and it's partially flooded and whatnot. And first of all, it's lit phenomenally. It's incredibly eerie and creepy, and the lighting, the way the light bounces, is great. It gives this really, really atmospheric tone of like nothing feels safe, and it feels like you're not supposed to be there like at all. Like the way darkness is captured versus light is phenomenal, and of course the water is all reflective. It's great. But then also you have the coloring, which is really phenomenal as well too. You have the emergency lights, which are strobing red. Of course, they're submerged underwater too, and everything looks kind of blue and black and cobalt color. So that's really great too. But then in the scene itself, there's no dialogue. There's no dialogue. First of all, because it's just Tom Cruise in his diving suit, and so you just hear him breathing, and then you hear groaning metal and stuff like that. So that in of itself is really awesome too. But then, of course, as Tom Cruise is messing with the submarine, with the components inside, that starts to kind of loosen the seabed that the submarine has now rested on, and the submarine starts to rotate and starts to roll at the bottom of the ocean. And of course, it's heading towards a cliff because, why not? But as it's rolling underwater, as it's rolling throughout the ocean, the gravity inside the submarine shifts, and so the water that's on the bottom of the ship flows to the side, and then Tom Cruise gets pulled to the side, and it goes up onto the ceiling. Then he himself is getting pulled up onto the ceiling. Then it stops. Then it all comes crashing back down. Then he's suddenly underwater, but now the water's at an angle, and so he has to wade through that. It's nuts. The geometry of this and the physics of this alone. There were times I was watching it, and I was like, I don't know which way is down. Which way would the water get pulled? And I'm not saying that like I was confused. I'm saying that I was like so thoroughly engrossed that I, as an outside observer, I was like, I have no idea how to navigate this. This literally seems impossible. But him being Tom Cruise, him being the super secret agent that he is, he's able to get through it. And he's dodging, like I said, metal and torpedoes that have fallen out of their brackets. And, he's getting through these doors and whatnot. And so that in of itself is really thrilling. However, all that being said, I will say that this mission film does feel the most fantastical out of all the ones that I've seen. The mission films again are exaggerated action films. Like not a lot of this stuff makes a whole heck of a lot of sense. But even something like climbing the Burj Khalifa, you know, Tom Cruise has gloves that stick to surfaces, so there's tech involved with it. And so you go, okay, he's a secret agent who has the best gear ever created in the history of forever. Okay, I buy that. Like climbing up a building without any ropes, impossible. You give him these super secret technological gloves, makes sense. The problem with the Final Reckoning is that there are sequences that even in a spy film, I'm like, okay, come on. I'm like, what are we doing here? Again, case in point, again, spoilers, but in that submarine sequence, Tom Cruise cannot get out the way he came in. So what he has to do is that he decides he's going to climb out through one of the submarine's torpedo tubes. That's how he's going to get out of the submarine. To do this, he has to shed his diving apparatus and his wetsuit because it's too bulky. It can't fit in there. You're literally putting a square into a circular hole. So he sheds that gear. Okay. The water would be incredibly freezing because this submarine is now frozen in some area of the Arctic. But again, okay, let's assume he can survive the freezing water. Okay, well now this submarine is resting at the bottom of the ocean. I believe they say it's 500 feet down. Uh, the pressure would surely kill him, but he's able to swim freely, um, and whatnot. And then it's said throughout the film that they thankfully they kind of set this up. They say that if the suit fails and you have to do this kind of descent or ascent, that you're going to get the bends, and they go through what the bends are, which is a neurological, type of injury that really does affect the brain and can cripple you. And you have to like get inside this hyperbaric chamber to slow that process and to increase the healing process. And so as Tom Cruise is is doing all of this as he's shedding his wetsuit, as he's ejecting from a torpedo tube, as he's swimming from 500 feet up on one breath in freezing water. He gets the bends. And so he's dying. He is like thoroughly dead, if not on the verge of death. And then he gets saved and he gets put into a hyperbaric chamber. And it's like, come on. It's like, I can believe him surviving one of these things. I can't believe him surviving all of them. And also, let's say he totally could, he gets inside the chamber and now he's healing from the bends. That's going to take some time for him to fully recuperate, but for him, he just gets back up again, gets right back to work. So, look, is it outlandish? No. But much like how I thought the fight scene that we did not see was akin to Looney Tunes. This is another instance of the film being akin to Looney Tunes. This is a little ridiculous. And then the last thing I'll say too is that Gabriel's death, again spoilers for the film, Gabriel's death is very Looney Tunes-esque in the sense that he does not fall out of the plane per se, so much as he kind of slips from its cockpit and then he hits the tail rudder between his legs, so he gets hit in the crotch by a piece of the plane, and then that then leads to him hitting his head on another portion of the tail. And so his death has him going from laughing and cackling at Tom Cruise to getting hit in the crotch and getting hit in the head, and that's how he dies. And it's like, again, Tom Cruise is Mr. Movies. He's made some incredible films going beyond the Mission Impossible films, but just staying inside the Mission series. These are all incredible. There's not a bad one among them. However, the more you do it, the more goofy you're going to get in the end. Look to Fast and Furious. That film series was just about cars. Now it's about cars that's jumping from building to building and sliding across the ice, its own, Arctic ice, and affecting torpedoes' trajectories and the whole deal, swinging off of cliffs like Tarzan. So yeah, look, as much as I love the Mission series and as much as I love Tom Cruise, I think this should be the last one. I think from a storytelling perspective, it should be, I think from a fantastical stunt an action perspective, it should be done because, as I've said, it's getting a little too outlandish for me. Also, I don't know what else he could physically do in terms of a stunt. He's done everything from jumping out of planes to helicopters to being underwater for long periods of time to now climbing from plane to plane. Like, I don't know what else he can do to entertain us, but I'm sure he'll find a way. But also, like, just with as much as I hate to say it, just with kind of the age of the cast being Tom Cruise, of course, himself, he's getting up there, and look, he can still move like an Olympian. But you know, I just think that it's taking a toll on him and the other people in the series the older they get. And so, I think if this is going to be the last one for any one of those reasons, I think good. I think they went out on a high note, and I really appreciate the film series as a whole. They really are remarkable pieces of cinema. They're remarkable pieces of action, especially nowadays when everything is shot on green screen or blue screen, or sadly using AI. Tom Cruise has said, "We're going to do this for real. We're going to drive real cars, fly real planes, actually throw punches." He strives for authenticity, and the Mission series is no exception. And yeah, I really, really appreciate what he's brought to the big screen, to our movie theaters over the years. And I just hope he continues to do that in whatever capacity he can. But yeah, it's been really fun rewatching the Mission series and seeing what is potentially the last chapter. And yeah, these films are incredible. And so I recommend that you check out any of them. But yeah, you can see The Final Reckoning in theaters now. And thank you so much for listening to each segment of this episode. Of course, for me, it feels more broken up, more segmented because I'm doing this one day at a time. You, of course, the listener, the viewer, will see this after it's all stitched together. But if you did watch this thing from front to back, thank you. This did take multiple days for me to record, so just I appreciate you guys sticking around. And yeah, as I said, Tom Cruise, what a guy, Mr. Movies himself. So yeah, just thanks for all the good entertainment over the years, and I hope I've been entertaining to you guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Far Out Podcast. You've been a Far Out audience, and I'll see you in the next one.